So I come from a very musical family. My father was a composer, my mom was a music teacher, and we all had to play an instrument in the house. And I chose the violin quite randomly, but I played it for about eight years, I guess, and then I chose to switch to guitar later on. Music was always a very important part of our family. My parents would always play music in the house because they preferred live music, so we used to go to a lot of concerts. Pretty much only classical music, but it gave me a real sense of what music is and what it can be. I guess when I was a teenager, I was mostly into listening to rock music, indie guitar stuff. And then from one day to the next, I heard all kinds of different sounds. I guess it started with listening to bands like 9 Inch Nails, which had lots of electronics in their music and still had a very rocky edge. The next thing would be listening to the Chemical Brothers' Underworld, which was already pretty techno, and then, you know, I was like, okay, what else is there? So I guess when I started to listen to electronic music, I realized pretty quickly that it's something you can really make yourself. I moved to a city in the Netherlands called Enschede, and this is where I studied. There was a DJ competition at the local pop venue, and they were looking for new residents. And I did win it, even though I played with CDs at the time, which meant there was no mixing. I was just playing one track after the other, and I guess they liked the music that I played. So that's basically how my DJ career started. I played every 2 weeks on the Thursday night, and started doing my own Saturday nights at some point as well. This, for me, was the best way to start learning how to DJ, because I learned on the spot. I learned in front of an audience, even though it was not a big audience, maybe like 100, 200 people. But I did learn how to kind of work the crowd and how to actually beat match. So then I was reading about electronic music a little bit, and I learned that there was a thing called the Groovebox MC303, and I was like, wow, okay. You could do your own drum patterns and create your synth lines and whatever else you could possibly do with music. And for me, that was perfect, because I was right away able to make my own music with just one machine. And that was the beginning of, I guess, the beginning of my producer's career. So when I got into DJing, my focus went mostly to techno. Techno for me was the most inspiring. When I finished my studies in Enschede, I moved to Rotterdam, and I came into this big city, and there was already a big infrastructure of DJs and producers that had their place. For me, it was very hard to fit in. So I started to just make my own music. Rotterdam was really, they kind of call it the Detroit of the Netherlands. There was a lot of melodic techno coming from there. Also harder sounds came from Rotterdam, like gabba music, for instance. But that was definitely an inspiration, I think, at that time, where I really was trying to develop my sound and diving deep into melodic techno. So in this course, you'll learn how I would make a track from the very start, from the very inspirational first notes that I press on a keyboard, on a synthesizer, and how I end up with a loop, how I add some drums, how I add different elements, pads, and a bass line, and try to work on a groove and a track within, let's say, an 8-bar loop, and how you can extend that to a full-size track.